IVM.
Going for parties is just so frustrating these days. I mean, your mom will make it a point to come and tell you how her friend's son has secured a house for her, and your wife will also find out that her sister's husband is taking her on a foreign holiday, while you're wondering why you're the only one who doesn't have a plan for the damn future. That's why I never sleep well during the festive time. Unless... www.hdfclife.com. Select. Done. You know what? I think I'll sleep rather well after all. Live calm. With HDFC Life, click to protect life. The Income Plus option offers life cover and steady income stream, so you're always ready for any expenses that life throws at you. Basically, this plan lets you plan your expenses like you plan your vacations. It's that simple. Visit hdfclife.com to know more and for terms and conditions.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach. And today we're going to talk about something that is, I think, really plaguing the world today. It is something that many of you listeners write in about, and which is why we have an expert with us on the Habit Coach podcast today. We're going to be talking about the discomfort that we feel in our lives and what we can do about it. And with us, we have an expert in this, Dr. Fred Moss. So Dr. Moss, welcome to the Habit Coach podcast.
It's so great to be here. So much fun to be here. And the truth is that life isn't always fun. And I think that's what you're poking at already this morning. There are some moments in life, day after day, and maybe even a little more often than usual, that life is not so comfortable. There are some circumstances that are very troubling, very disturbing. And I'm looking forward to talking to you and our listeners about some of those things. And maybe what can we do about it, or what should we know about it, or how should we deal with it?
I love that approach. Dr. Moss, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Fred Moss, Dr. Fred Moss, and I was born to be a healer, basically. And my family tells me that I was put on this earth so that I could bring some degree of order to a chaotic family that was in disarray. And so ever since that first second when I arrived here, I've been on a mission to create order and to create communication. I have been enchanted with communication forever. And always, I was a big talker when I was a child, and I was an entertainer. My family would bring me out to entertain them. And this is something that has grown with me over my years, over all of my career, all the way into my elders. I went to college, just like everyone, looking for a place where I could learn how to communicate. And unfortunately, I was disillusioned every time I took that next step into higher education. And I really noticed that communication was no longer even critical. All we were there to do is take in information and then regurgitate it out. So I left college, I dropped out, and I got a job working in a state mental hospital in Michigan. And in that state mental hospital, I really learned again that communication can be really healing. And I was connecting with these children. They were adolescents in the hospital. And I really it was a pretty good job. It was a job that paid enough. And I was like, I could actually do this for a living, but in order to do it, I want to be at the top of the heap. And so I'm going to go back to school. And I went back to school and then went to medical school, a very internationally well-known medical school, Northwestern Medical School. And around that time is when Prozac was introduced. And when Prozac got introduced, it was as big a deal as anything that's going on right now, by the way. And it changed psychiatry and mental health entirely, from the foundation. It basically had us all start believing that if we weren't feeling good, it was because something was wrong with us. Now, I hope that some of our listeners can look at that and realize that there is nothing wrong with you if you're not feeling good. Just because you don't like what's going on, or just because you're afraid, disturbed, confused, anxious, tired, hopeless, those are things that come with the package of being a human. Nevertheless, I proceeded through my doctor career over the next 30 plus years to learn how to do psychiatry the way it was being shown to me. And I got really good at it. I got all over the country and then started doing psychiatry all over the world and using communication and computers to attempt to connect to people like we're doing today. It is magical technology after all.
Completely.
And the next thing that happened was I became less and less interested in giving people medications or in giving people diagnoses. So I started experimenting with what happens if I treat people without medications or start taking or reducing their medications off. And lo and behold, people got better quickly, way quicker than they thought. Without medications, some people had their whole diagnosis go poof into the air. And in other situations, I started realizing that the medication wasn't the issue. It was that people thought there was something wrong with them. So not only did I take them off their medicine, we started talking about maybe there's nothing wrong with you in the first place. Starting from there, we really got to a space where communication, connection, creativity, and conversations at the heart of all healing became a great emphasis for me. And now we've moved up, fast forward to now, where I have backed out of the medical complex. I'm no longer practicing conventional medicine or conventional psychiatry because it doesn't really work very well. But what does work is meeting people eye to eye and having people get that you respect and trust and are interested and curious in who they really are. And people, that's all people want. All people want is to be heard. All people want is to be respected or at least listened to. So when I start from there, and it isn't a matter of like setting aside the labels. It's a matter of really believing that there is nothing wrong with a person who's walking through life. Look, we don't have a definition of what it is to be normal. So why do we have the audacity to make a claim that we know what abnormal is? And with that, I have finally become the healer that I was put on the planet to do. Basically, all I have to do is back up into the area of really believing that there is nothing inherently wrong with most of the people that come to me. They're just uncomfortable in a world that creates discomfort here and there. Nothing wrong or bad about it. It's just respecting discomfort as part of the package of being a human being. And that's who I am. So Welcome to Humanity is the brand that I created. And then, and then really getting that it's time to speak our real truth is what's here. So the next brand that really got created is the True Voice brand. And that's really what my life is immersed in now, mostly the True Voice podcasting brand or the True Voice community.
That's amazing, because whenever people message or talk about this, the first thing is it normal to? Right? Is it normal to feel like this? Is it normal to have this? Is it normal to this? And as soon as you ask the question, is it normal? In your head, you already feel that you're abnormal. And that's one of the loneliest feelings that there is, right? So the way that you're saying that, we all are like this is absolutely normal. It is just that these events come and go through our life. Correct? Discomfort is something that is there in our life.
Absolutely.
So how do you think about discomfort? Like when somebody comes up and and is, in a deep state of discomfort, how do you even begin to have that conversation? Like people listening to this would be in that state or would have friends in that state.
Sure. And there are people who are listening to this who are in that state. And my heart is out to people who are in that state because it's very uncomfortable. It might get so uncomfortable that you don't know why. You can't find a reason to take that next breath or to get out of bed or to go to work or to take a next piece, to make yourself a meal, to treat yourself with any kind of honor. It's hard to find that at times. So the first thing to do is really get that there's not an urgency or an emergency in like, we got to do something right now for the fact that you're feeling bad. There's something about getting very grounded and listening. If you show up with somebody else who is in great discomfort, you can have deep compassion, deep acceptance, and maybe more than anything, really authentic listening based on curiosity. You've got to be really interested in what these people are saying or what they're experiencing. And you'll notice that if you're really interested and you're not afraid of them being uncomfortable, you will bring healing to that conversation instantaneously. This is not something that's going to take a long time. All people really want is to be heard. That's it. And if you can listen to people and have them, it's like, oh, thank you so much for getting me. Oh, I feel like I have a friend. Oh, thank you for loving me so much. Oh, thank you for listening. That's what people say. And that only happens when you really land yourself with another person and you really get, yeah, there's intense pain over there. It's real. I'm not saying it's in your head. I hope you hear that. I'm not saying that. I'm not diminishing the power of it. I'm not saying get over it. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, welcome to humanity. It's at times, it's very difficult to be a human being. And that comes with the entire package of the gift we hear called life.
Absolutely. And, Dr. Moss, there are two aspects to this. There is the talking aspect, which is having your voice, and then there's the listening aspect, right? Are there elements and steps that we can do for both of these?
That's a very great question. Yeah, I think the elements and the steps for listening, there are at least two aspects. There's a listening and the speaking. But what there really is the processing and the creating. So if we show up inside of our conversations with a great deal of curiosity, a great deal of wonder, a great deal of emptiness, if we're here just, I wonder what's next. I wonder what accepting things new is what I'm speaking to. It is so easy to get caught up in same old day, same old day, same old day, same old people, same old people. And that doesn't work very well. But in the world of speaking, if you really get that each time you utter a new word, it is totally new. It is like an artist putting paint on a canvas. It is like someone blowing a new note in a horn. And if you really get that it's new all the time, that even if it feels like it's just repetitive, there's an opportunity to really make new changes, to transform and do things you've never done before, then how you speak, like I've never said these words before. I've thought this perhaps, I've thought something like this in the past. So what? I've never had a conversation with you before. And I can fall within being very, very amused, very caught up, like a kid in a candy store or a kid at a carnival. I can become really curious and really enchanted with the world around me. Now, let's say that's not working so well. Then in the world of listening, that's where I really can catch up. Because as soon as I stop talking, I can realize, well, there's someone there who, someone who I'm with, who has some ideas, who has some thoughts, who has a voice, who has something to say, who has something that matters to them, something they're caught up with, something that's going either great for them or not so great, or going, terrible, or something they want to share. And I can open up not just my ears, but open up my whole self to resonate or to listen to curiously explore what's going on over there. Again, in the source of communication, in the source of authentic listening, in the source of having very real curiosity, that's where all healing starts from there.
It's almost like you have to put on your little explorer hat, right? Your Indiana Jones hat, and go out understanding like, wow, where are we? What is it that we're looking for?
We're going to take a quick break. See you on the other side.
Love fighting?
We've got you covered.
Check out our show, The Fighting Goat, where we, the voices of the internet, Arjun Chipalkatti and Somesh Kamra, bring to you crazy weekly action on your favorite combat show, The Fighting Goat.
Be it commentary, breakdown, predictions, analysis of styles and techniques.
And of course, your round of favorite fighters.
You can listen to us every Thursday on the IBM Podcast app, website, and all major podcast streaming platforms.
Welcome back. All right, let's jump into the conversation.
When we discuss this with people, especially there's something else that people keep talking about, which is, life has gotten so boring. Everything is the same. Like you said, same thing, same shit, new day, right? That's the expression that people use, right? Everything's gotten so boring. Everything's gotten so boring. What is missing?
Well, that's a really great question. I think what's missing is this curiosity. What's missing is the sovereignty that we all have. What's missing is it turns out that boredom is an inside job. It turns out that things are never boring, that there's not an inherent truth in the word boredom. It is how we process things. If you just sit there like you're at a factory, like another minute, another conversation, then you can create the notion of boredom. But I had there's a time I was really related at one point to a pretty famous man, and his tagline was that boredom is the enemy. And really get that we are, our default is to become pretty resigned in the world, to just give up, to become a leaf in the river. And when we do that, when we take our hand off the wheel, when we take our fingers off the reins, and we become at the effect of the world around us, then it maybe starts looking like same shit, different day. And it's an opportunity, and it's not simple. Look, even as I sit here right now, I'm like, I know life is boring. I know how to get to that. I know. I agree with you. Same shit, different day. And then all of life takes on a different color, like black and white instead of color. And when I go with, wow, I've been given a gift to have another second, another minute right now. Can I muster up some interest in the moment? Can I get how remarkable it is that you and I are having this conversation at all? And that someone actually is out there caring about what we say, and that they can hear us right now, even though we are thousands of miles away from each other, tens of thousands, perhaps. Like the idea that we can be talking about things and making a difference with another person, that you and I might be affecting someone who is now going to change their direction and affect their children and their children's children differently because me and you are uttering voices to each other. I can get very excited about that.
Yeah.
And that's maybe what's here. Get very curious and consider keeping that spark lit.
It's actually miraculous the way it is right now. You said something very important a while back, which was there's that sense of hopelessness that sets in. And I think when it comes to discomfort, that hopelessness is that last real, the part where you want to give up, right? I remember having so many conversations with friends who just said, what's the point? Right? What's the point? What's the point? Like they don't see a reason for a future at all. What are steps that people can do if they are at this stage right now? Are there action points that they can start doing, or do they need somebody to hear them, or is there something that they?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting question. So yes, they need someone to hear them. I would say that, but they have to speak.
Correct.
No one will hear you if you don't speak. So it's a two-way conversation. You have to speak, and there's a lot of ways to speak. You can speak with your voice. You can call your friend, or you can get on the internet with, have a call with your friend, have a conversation, even like a Zoom call you're having now, or FaceTime, or whatever is available to you. But there are other ways. You can write a letter, you can write an email, or you can do something creatively. So creatively, I've noticed that when I'm in the act of creating something, and usually like in the arts, maybe art or music or dancing or singing or drama or cooking or writing or gardening. These are things that I can use on real time. And when I'm in the act of creating, all my negative experiences tend to dissolve. While I'm making music, even like that, my mood changes while I'm doing it. If I was actually to take a pencil and start doodling, my mood would change while I'm doing it. And so in the act of doing any kind of creation, that's a really nice hack to taking away discomfort and to giving our lives back, because we are in the image of the creator, basically, and being creative souls, and we are super creative. Every single one of us is super creative. To get through one more second in life, you're going to have to be really creative. You're going to have to set aside the things you don't care about and put the things you do care about into your world, and then take steps or blinks or breaths into a world that, you're going to have to figure out how to put this all together. You're a creative monster, basically. So in the world of creativity, bringing that forth. And then, I think the real question is, so there's creativity. And believe it or not, one of the things that I think our listeners should understand is, and I think this pretty universal, is if nothing else is working, and you're like, I don't want to pick up a paintbrush. I don't have any drumsticks. I don't want to write. I don't want to call my friends. One of the things that you can do is you can help anybody do anything. Like that is the ultimate hack. That just works all the time. You can help anybody do anything. So if there's someone over there that you don't even know, you can help them, or you can call your neighbor, or you can, we are social beings. So when we get that we're useful by helping another person do whatever they're up to, whatever that is, there's a classic example. You can go shopping for your neighbor. Okay. Or you're going to pick up a piece of garbage or anything like that, right? A sense of worthiness sets in when we help somebody do anything. And there's an infusion of self-respect that also shows up there, such that life actually takes on a new meaning. And you can get a full reset in your life just by helping another person do something.
My God. Okay. So there's so much to unpack there, right? Because you use this fantastic word, the self-respect aspect, correct? As soon as you do something for somebody else, your self-respect goes up, right? Your sense of worth goes up. The way that you see yourself goes up. And, I've had a theory during these last 2 years when, we've seen this discomfort increase so dramatically. And tell me if I'm, in the right ballpark with this, which is that I've seen that a lot of people become very self-centered during these last 2 years, right? Especially because of the way that we are now. If we are quarantined, if we are in our own homes, this was the time to work on ourselves, and our sense of community went away. And our sense of helping others disappeared a little bit. And I think people who were stuck in that trap faced a lot of discomfort and found it very difficult to come out. Did you notice something like this in your practice?
Well, of course, I did notice this everywhere, not just in my practice, but everywhere. People, when they're asked to separate or to isolate or to quarantine, and they naturally just kind of duck their shoulders and say, okay, and go away and put on masks and don't talk and don't look at people and don't breathe and don't touch anybody and be afraid and be very afraid that person might have something that's going to hurt you. And, you certainly don't want to get in front of their breath, and you don't want to talk politics, and you don't want to talk about religion. You don't want to talk about anything. All you want to do is find your way to your comfortable space, which, by the way, is not with anybody at all. And then you sit in a dank room, just wondering what you're going to do with your life. There's despair that is inevitable in that circumstance.
Correct.
So, of course, I've seen that, not just in my practice, in the world at large. And we are somehow herded into being unheard. And by being herded into being unheard, we find ourselves with no longer having any tools. We give up our tools when we just sit back and wait, or when this all blows over, or I can't even talk to my best friend anymore. It's a very troubling time in that area. These are difficult times. And that's when creativity, communication, and connection become even more paramount and become, even more exquisitely important in our lives. So these last 2 years have been more of an emphasis or more of a push towards contracting or constricting or restricting our voices. And that's why that has become, in a lot of ways, the new pandemic. And the biggest crisis in the world is not what we think it is. The biggest crisis in the world is not racism. It's not climate change. It's not sex trafficking. These are big things. It's not COVID. It's not. Those things are huge. I mean, I'm not diminishing how big they are. But the biggest crisis in the world is that we're giving up our voice. We don't speak. We don't say our truth anymore. We are giving up on our capacity to give up to speak our authentic message. And in that, imagine a life where you get through the whole life and you never said what you meant, ever.
Wow.
That's what we're now stepping into, is that people are making that decision, and that they have no intention of ever saying to anyone what they really mean. And to me, that's the biggest crisis that humanity has ever faced, and even larger than these other super major crises that are out there.
Yeah. I was just talking to a friend yesterday, and she was saying that I am just so conscious about saying anything to anybody right now. Right? Every time I say something, I have to think 45 times before even talking to somebody. It's just like everybody's become either ultra sensitive, or am I saying things that are wrong? And that is the question, right? Is everyone too sensitive, or am I wrong? And I think you're absolutely right. This is going to be a very scary thing going forward.
Yeah, this is the challenge right here. And, there's going to be some catastrophes. And I think we're staring down catastrophes and we're blaming other things and other people for the catastrophes that maybe we're creating for ourselves. And we're all on the same ship together. And it's frightening. It actually is a little bit frightening to look at the end of this line, like what's over there on the other side of this, if there's anything, or are we really looking at the annihilation of humanity as we just kind of walk off the cliff like lemmings?
Yeah. Lovely. Dr. Moss, I thank you so much for coming on the podcast. How can people get in touch with you? Where can people reach out to you?
So there's a couple places. My website is under construction, but you can still go there. It's not that bad. It's a few years ago, so it's ready for a facelift, and that's happening also this month with my team. And my website's called welcometohumanity.net, and I'm Dr. Fred at welcometohumanity.net is my email. So Dr. Fred, Dr. Fred at welcometohumanity.net. The True Voice community is really exciting, and that's being loaded up now in my Facebook group. It's called True Voice, the True Voice community, or the True Voice podcasting community. And we're having a summit. The summit is coming up on February 19th, and we'll see. I'm not sure when this episode actually drops, but we'll be having another summit shortly after that in April. And the summit is a Find Your True Voice Summit, Find Your Voice Summit. And this is a place where people can learn and come to and work with others or play with others or be with others who are also interested in preserving and then delivering our true voice. So the Find Your Voice Summit is coming around the corner. Another place to look at for me is on LinkedIn. And then there's my podcast. You know, there's the Welcome to Humanity podcast and the course that I teach, which is it's called the True Voice Podcasting Mastermind. And I have a whole lot of fun just graduating people from 0 to 60 who didn't know how to be podcasters. Some of them didn't have any idea what a podcast was. And after taking my course, they walk away as actual world-class podcasters. And that's the best way to find me.
Awesome. How long have you been doing your podcast for?
My own personal podcast is just about 2 years now.
All right. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Super. Thank you for coming.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, that was our first episode with Dr. Fred Moss, where we were understanding the concept of discomfort in our lives. Now, this continues as episode number 2, so make sure that you listen to that when it comes out. So start these habits and share with us your progress using the hashtag #TheHabitCoach. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashdin Doctor on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com, or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME180. That's Awesome180.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Think Fast, Namit Potnes, a good friend of mine, founder of Drumworks, joins Varun and Suchita. He talks about all things NFT and shares a few tips on investing. On Paisaveza, Anupam and Devina Mehra, founder at First Global, discuss the outlook for the Indian equity market in 2022. On the Filter Coffee podcast, Karthik talks to author Rashna Bisht about her book, 1971 Charge of the Gorkhas. On All Things Policy, the Takshashila folk contemplate the need for Indian health services in current times. And on Say No to Drama, Chetna pulls down the curtain around nostalgia and teaches us how to live in the present. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Also, please do tell a friend. It really does help us when you spread the word about our podcast. And I'd also like to ask you if you could rate or recommend wherever you listen to our podcast. And speaking of where you listen to this show, if you're on an Android phone, do check out our new Android app. We have a brand new app with a brand new listening experience. Definitely check it out. I think you will enjoy it. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Bank of Baroda and CoinSwitch Kuber. Thank you so much for making this possible.
We know you love fast food,
Fast fashion,
faster payment.
lightning fast internet speed.
Then why not fast information?
On Think Fast, where we discuss the latest developments in the world of technology, business, marketing, pop culture.
With a side of sarcasm and my dad jokes Or just mine?
Not mine, Varun. My jokes are funny. So join me, guys, the funnier one, Suchita Salvan, co-founder of LBB.
And me, Varun Dugirala, the co-founder of The Glitch, as we think fast only on the IVM network.
Fresh episodes out every Monday.
On the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcast from.